You can even leave it lying in the sun.
Chocolate factory. Forever. I'm sorry.
Hands up.
Open the lid.
He's slowing down. He's gonna stay.
This is it. Pleasure. Okay? You'll find yourself.
It sounds great.
This was a special treat to get the nuts and shells out. What's the screen?
Better say which one will it be.
What kind of a question is that?
So let's talk about one of the most visually stunning and delightfully weird movies of the 2000s, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You know, when this film came out in 2005, everyone had their own opinions about it, especially since we already had the classic 1971 version with Gene Wilder stuck in our heads. But Tim Burton's take on Roald Dahl's beloved story brought something completely different to the table. And honestly, it's aged like fine chocolate. The basic premise of the film is actually pretty straightforward, but it's wrapped in layers of social commentary and pure imagination. We're talking about a story set in a world where poverty and wealth exist side by side, where a young boy named Charlie Bucket lives with his entire extended family in a tiny, crooked house that looks like it might collapse at any moment. Charlie's family is so poor that they're literally eating cabbage soup for every meal, and the kid only gets one chocolate bar a year for his birthday. Meanwhile, there's this massive, mysterious chocolate factory looming over the town, owned by the reclusive and eccentric Willy Wonka. The factory has been closed to the public for years, with no one going in or out except for the mysterious workers nobody ever sees. Then Wonka announces he's hidden 5 golden tickets in chocolate bars around the world, and whoever finds them gets a tour of the factory, plus a lifetime supply of chocolate. It's basically every kid's dream come true, right? But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about a factory tour. It's about finding an heir to Wonka's empire, though we don't really understand that until much later in the film. Now, let's dive into the main characters because they're absolutely crucial to understanding why this film works on so many levels. Charlie Bucket is our protagonist, played by Freddie Highmore, and he's basically the embodiment of everything good and pure in the world. The kid is living in extreme poverty, sleeping in a bed with 4 grandparents who haven't gotten up in 20 years, and yet he never complains. He doesn't whine, he doesn't steal, he doesn't act out. He's grateful for what little he has, and he genuinely loves his family. Charlie works after school to help bring in a few extra pennies, and he passes by Wonka's factory every single day, dreaming about what might be inside, but never expecting he'll actually get to see it. What makes Charlie special isn't that he's particularly smart or talented or lucky initially. It's that he has this incredible moral compass that the other children completely lack. He's polite, he's honest, and he thinks about others before himself. When he finds money in the street, his first thought is to return it, and only when there's no owner to be found does he buy a chocolate bar. That's the kind of kid we're dealing with here. Then you've got the Bucket family, which is just wonderfully dysfunctional in the best way. Charlie's parents are played by Noah Taylor and Helena Bonham Carter, and they're doing their absolute best with basically nothing. His dad works at a toothpaste factory, screwing caps onto tubes, and his mom does laundry. They're exhausted, they're worried, but they never let Charlie see them completely break down. And then there are the 4 grandparents, Grandpa Joe, Grandma Josephine, Grandpa George, and Grandma Georgina, who have been sharing one bed for decades. Grandpa Joe, played by David Kelly, becomes particularly important because he's the one who accompanies Charlie on the factory tour. He's the dreamer of the family, the one who used to work at Wonka's factory before it closed, and he's got all these stories about the glory days. When Charlie finds his golden ticket, Grandpa Joe literally gets out of bed for the first time in years, which is both heartwarming and slightly hilarious when you think about it. Like the man could walk the whole time. The family dynamic is really touching, though, because despite having nothing, they have each other, and that's portrayed as being worth more than all the chocolate in the world. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Willy Wonka himself, and this is where Johnny Depp really swings for the fences with his performance. This isn't Gene Wilder's warm, mysterious, occasionally scary Wonka. This is a Wonka who's deeply traumatized, socially awkward, and honestly kind of creepy at times. Depp plays him as someone who's been isolated for so long that he's forgotten how to interact with normal human beings, especially children. He's got this weird bob haircut, he wears purple velvet and a top hat, and he speaks in this affected, almost childlike voice that switches to something darker when he's annoyed. Burton and Depp made the choice to give Wonka a backstory involving his father, a strict dentist played by Christopher Lee, who forbade him from eating candy as a child. This explains why Wonka is simultaneously obsessed with candy and completely disconnected from normal family relationships. He literally can't say the word parents without having a physical reaction. Some people loved this interpretation, others thought it was too much, but you can't deny it's memorable. Wonka in this version is a genius, absolutely, but he's also damaged goods, and finding Charlie, a child who represents everything good about family, becomes his redemption arc. Now we need to talk about the other golden ticket winners because they're basically walking cautionary tales, and they're absolutely hilarious in how over the top they are. First up is Augustus Gloop, the German kid who's so obsessed with eating that he literally cannot stop shoveling food into his mouth. He's not just chubby. The film makes it clear that his parents have enabled his complete lack of self-control to a dangerous degree. His mother is constantly making excuses for him, saying things like, "He's just a growing boy," while he's literally eating the chocolate wallpaper off the walls. Then there's Veruca Salt, the ultimate spoiled brat from England, whose father owns a nut company. Veruca's parents have given her absolutely everything she's ever wanted, immediately, without question. She doesn't even say please. She just demands things, and when she doesn't get them, she throws tantrums that would make a toddler proud. The actress who plays her, Julia Winter, does an amazing job of making you want to reach through the screen and tell this kid no for the first time in her life. Violet Beauregard is the ultra-competitive girl who's all about winning, to the point where winning has become her entire personality. She's constantly chewing gum, she's got a tracksuit on, and she's got this intensity that's really uncomfortable to watch. Her mother is basically living vicariously through her, turning her daughter into this achievement-obsessed machine. Every conversation comes back to winning, being the best, being number one. There's no joy in anything she does. It's all about the trophy, the recognition, the proof that she's better than everyone else. And finally, we have Mike Teavee, the kid who's so absorbed in television and video games that he's basically lost touch with reality. He's rude, he's dismissive, he thinks he's smarter than everyone because he's absorbed all this information from screens. He represents that generation of kids who are being raised by electronics rather than people. And even in 2005, this was prescient. Now in our current era of iPads and YouTube kids, Mike Teavee seems almost prophetic. His parents have essentially checked out, letting the TV raise their kid, and the result is this obnoxious little know-it-all who has no respect for anyone or anything. The role of Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka really cannot be overstated because he's the axis around which the entire film spins. Depp was already known for playing eccentric characters. This was post-Pirates of the Caribbean, so everyone knew he could do weird and make it work. But Wonka was a different beast entirely. He approached the character not as a magical candy man, but as someone who's essentially Peter Pan, if Peter Pan had unlimited resources and deep psychological issues. Depp has said in interviews that he based the character partly on children's television hosts, which explains that slightly manic, performative quality Wonka has. He's always on, always performing, but you get the sense that underneath the performance is someone who's deeply lonely and doesn't quite know how to fix it. The way Depp plays the factory tour is brilliant because Wonka is simultaneously proud of his creations and completely indifferent to the children's safety. When kids start getting into trouble, he doesn't panic. He just makes sarcastic comments and keeps moving forward. It's only with Charlie that we see glimpses of genuine emotion, moments where the mask slips and we see someone who desperately wants connection but has forgotten how to achieve it. Freddie Highmore as Charlie Bucket is equally important, even though his role is much more subtle and understated. Highmore was only about 13 when he made this film, but he brings this old soul quality to Charlie that makes you believe this kid really is special. He doesn't overact, he doesn't try to be cute, he just plays Charlie as a genuinely good person who happens to be young. The scenes where Charlie is at home with his family, listening to Grandpa Joe's stories or sharing his birthday chocolate with everyone, are played with such sincerity that you can't help but root for him. And when he's in the factory, surrounded by all these miracles and wonders, Highmore plays it with this wide-eyed amazement that never tips over into being saccharine. He's amazed, but he's also thoughtful. He asks questions, he's curious, but he's never greedy. When Wonka offers him something, Charlie doesn't grab. He considers whether it's right to take it. That's incredibly hard for a young actor to pull off without seeming preachy, but Highmore manages it beautifully. The dynamic between Depp and Highmore is really the heart of the film, even though they don't interact much in the first half. When they're finally together in the factory, you can feel this growing connection between a man who's forgotten how to be human and a boy who's never forgotten. Charlie doesn't judge Wonka for being weird. He's curious about him, certainly, but accepting. And Wonka, despite his social awkwardness, clearly sees something in Charlie that reminds him of the joy and wonder he used to feel before his father crushed his spirit. Their final scenes together, where Wonka has to choose between his factory and his family issues, and Charlie has to choose between his dreams and his family, are genuinely touching without being manipulative. You believe that these two people, despite their vastly different circumstances, have found something in each other, a kind of understanding and acceptance that both of them desperately needed. David Kelly as Grandpa Joe deserves special mention because he's basically our entry point into Wonka's world. Kelly, who was in his 70s when he made this film, brings this infectious enthusiasm to the role. When he gets out of bed and dances around after Charlie finds the golden ticket, you believe that this man has been waiting his whole life for this moment. He's not just excited for chocolate. He's excited to see the place where he once worked, to show his grandson the wonders he's only been able to describe in stories. Throughout the factory tour, Grandpa Joe is protective of Charlie, but also clearly having the time of his life. He's like a kid again, which makes sense because he's been essentially living as a child for years, lying in bed while others take care of him. The film doesn't judge him for this. It's just accepted as the reality of their poverty. Kelly and Highmore have wonderful chemistry together, playing off each other with genuine affection that makes you believe they really are family. Now let's talk about what the group actually discovers when they enter the factory, because this is where Tim Burton's visual imagination goes into overdrive. The exterior of the factory is all dark and gothic and mysterious, with these huge pipes and industrial architecture that looks vaguely threatening. But the moment those gates open and the group steps inside, it's like entering another dimension entirely. The first room they encounter is the chocolate room, and it's absolutely breathtaking. We're talking about a massive indoor landscape with a chocolate waterfall, a chocolate river, candy mushrooms, giant lollipops, and grass you can eat. Everything is edible, and everything is designed to look like a child's fantasy come to life. Burton uses incredibly saturated colors, bright greens and pinks and purples, that are almost overwhelming after the gray, depressing town we've been watching for the first part of the film. The contrast is intentional and powerful. The factory represents unlimited possibility and joy, everything that's been missing from these children's lives, even the rich ones who have everything material but nothing genuine. But here's what's really interesting about what they find. The factory isn't just full of candy. It's full of weird, slightly unsettling inventions that don't always work properly. There's the gum that's supposed to be a 3-course meal but turns people into blueberries. There's the television chocolate that can transport things but might scramble them in the process. There's the nut sorting room full of trained squirrels that are honestly kind of terrifying. Wonka has created all these amazing things, but he's done it in isolation, without normal human feedback, so some of his inventions are brilliant and some are borderline dangerous. The Oompa Loompas, these small orange-faced people who work in the factory, are another discovery that raises all sorts of questions. In this version, they're played by Deep Roy in multiple roles through digital effects, and they're basically Wonka's entire workforce. He saved them from their homeland where they were being eaten by predators, and in return, they work for cocoa beans. It's presented as a mutually beneficial arrangement, but there's definitely some colonialism undertones there if you want to dig into it. The Oompa Loompas perform elaborate musical numbers every time a child meets a terrible fate, which is darkly hilarious. They're basically singing "We Told You So" in increasingly creative ways. Each room in the factory reveals something new and usually results in one of the badly behaved children getting into trouble through their own flaws. Augustus falls into the chocolate river because he can't stop eating long enough to be careful. Violet grabs the experimental gum despite being warned not to and turns into a giant blueberry. Veruca tries to take one of the nut-sorting squirrels and gets thrown down a garbage chute. Mike ignores all warnings about the television chocolate and gets shrunk down to a tiny size. Every single one of these incidents happens because the child refuses to listen, refuses to control themselves, refuses to think about consequences. And here's the thing, Wonka warns them every single time. He's not setting traps. He tells them not to do things, explains why they shouldn't do them, and they do them anyway. Then he just kind of shrugs and moves on with the tour. It's darkly comedic because these are children suffering somewhat horrifying transformations, but the film makes it clear that they brought it on themselves. Their parents are horrified, but they're also the ones who created these little monsters, so there's this sense of poetic justice happening. What the team also discovers is that this isn't really a tour, it's a test. Wonka is looking for someone specific, someone who can inherit his life's work. He's getting older, he has no family of his own, and he needs an heir who won't corrupt what he's built or run it into the ground. Every room, every temptation, is designed to reveal the true character of these children. The kids who are greedy, rude, violent, or gluttonous eliminate themselves through their own actions. Only Charlie, who listens to instructions, who doesn't grab at things, who thinks before he acts, makes it through intact. The final test comes when Wonka offers Charlie the factory, but says he has to leave his family behind. For the first time, we see Wonka actually invested in the outcome. He needs Charlie to say yes, to validate Wonka's worldview that the factory is worth any sacrifice. But Charlie refuses. He chooses his family over unlimited chocolate and wealth, which is something Wonka simply cannot comprehend. It breaks Wonka's brain a little bit because in his experience, everyone wants something from him. Everyone can be bought. But here's this poor kid turning down the opportunity of a lifetime because he won't abandon the people who love him. The character who represents order and rules in a world of chaos would be Willy Wonka himself, which is ironic because he appears chaotic. But if you pay attention, Wonka's factory runs on very specific rules and systems. The Oompa Loompas work like clockwork. Every invention has a process. Everything happens for a reason. Wonka has created this perfect little world where he's in complete control, where nobody questions him, where he doesn't have to deal with the messiness of human relationships. The chaos that erupts during the tour happens because outsiders, specifically badly raised children, enter his controlled environment and refuse to follow the rules. Wonka's whole trauma stems from his father imposing too many rules on him as a child, forbidding candy entirely, which drove Wonka to rebel and create a place where he makes the rules. But in doing so, he's isolated himself completely, creating a different kind of prison. The factory is beautiful and amazing, but it's also lonely. Wonka has all the candy in the world, but nobody to share it with. Nobody who cares about him, rather than what he can give them. The journey through the factory is also a journey through Wonka's psyche, in a lot of ways. The chocolate room is pure joy, and childlike wonder. It's what Wonka wishes his childhood had been. The inventing room is his genius at work, his pride and innovation on display. But then you get to places like the nut room, which is all about sorting good from bad, which reflects Wonka's judgment of people and his need to separate the worthy from the unworthy. The television room is about technology and progress, Wonka's constant need to innovate and do things nobody else has done. Each space reflects a different aspect of his personality, and the children's failures in each space reflect Wonka's own judgments about human nature. He believes people are fundamentally selfish, greedy, and uncontrollable because that's what his father taught him, and the four awful children confirm that belief. Only Charlie challenges it by being genuinely good without expecting reward. When we talk about the production side of things, Tim Burton as director was absolutely the right choice for this material, even though some Roald Dahl purists disagreed. Burton has always been drawn to stories about outsiders, about people who don't fit into normal society, and both Charlie and Wonka are outsiders in their own ways. Burton's visual style, which blends gothic darkness with whimsical fantasy, perfectly captures the dual nature of Dahl's story. This is a children's story, but it's also kind of dark and twisted, with kids suffering terrible fates and adults being completely useless. Burton doesn't shy away from the darkness. He leans into it while also creating these moments of genuine beauty and wonder. His previous work on films like Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, and Sleepy Hollow showed he could balance the macabre with the magical, and that skill set is on full display here. Burton brings his usual collaborators into the project, which gives the film a cohesive visual and tonal identity. The production design by Alex McDowell is absolutely stunning, creating distinct looks for the gray poverty of Charlie's world versus the oversaturated candy wonderland of the factory. The costume design by Gabriella Piscucci is equally important, from Wonka's purple velvet suit and top hat to the specific outfits that define each of the bratty children. Violet's tracksuit, Veruca's fur coat, Mike's video game shirts. Every visual choice tells you something about the characters before they even speak. The cinematography by Philippe Rousselot uses color in really interesting ways, keeping the outside world in blues and grays and browns, making it look cold and unwelcoming, while the factory explodes with warm, vibrant colors that are almost aggressive in their intensity. The lighting shifts too, natural, realistic lighting in the real world versus theatrical, stylized lighting in the factory that makes everything look slightly unreal. The screenplay was written by John August, who had worked with Burton before on Big Fish and would collaborate with him again on several projects. August faced the challenge of adapting a beloved children's book that had already been turned into a beloved film. His solution was to go back to Dahl's original text and pull out elements that the 1971 film had skipped, specifically Wonka's backstory with his dentist father. This was controversial because Dahl's book doesn't include this subplot, but it gives the film an emotional arc beyond just the factory tour. August also updated some of the references and humor for modern audiences while keeping the core story intact. The dialogue has that slightly heightened theatrical quality that Burton's films often have. People don't talk exactly like real people, but they talk in a way that's entertaining and quotable. The Oompa Loompa songs were rewritten by Danny Elfman in different musical styles, from disco to rock to Queen-inspired opera, which adds variety and keeps them from becoming repetitive. Speaking of Danny Elfman, his musical score is absolutely crucial to the film's success. Elfman has scored almost every Tim Burton film, and their collaboration is one of those perfect director-composer partnerships where each understands what the other needs. The main theme is this whimsical, slightly mysterious melody that captures the magic and danger of Wonka's world. But Elfman also creates distinct themes for different parts of the factory and different characters. The Oompa Loompa songs are massive production numbers that parody different musical genres while delivering Dahl's original moral messages about the consequences of bad behavior. Elfman actually sings the Oompa Loompa parts himself in multiple vocal tracks, creating this weird chorus effect that's both amusing and slightly creepy. The music swells during moments of wonder, like when Charlie first enters the chocolate room, but it can also become dark and foreboding when danger approaches. It's a versatile, memorable score that enhances every scene without overpowering it. The film was released by Warner Brothers in July 2005, going into production in 2004 with a budget of approximately $150 million. That was a substantial investment, but Burton's recent success with Big Fish and the continued popularity of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, which starred Johnny Depp, made the studio confident. The production utilized both practical sets and CGI effects to create the factory. The chocolate room was an actual massive set with a real chocolate waterfall pumping chocolate-like substance, real grass, and physical props. But elements like the Oompa Loompas and some of the more fantastical moments required extensive visual effects. Deep Roy, who played all the Oompa Loompas, had to perform each character separately, and then digital effects multiplied him to create the appearance of hundreds of workers. This was before motion capture became as sophisticated as it is now, so it was a technically challenging process that required precise choreography and timing. The inspiration for the film came from multiple sources beyond just Dahl's original book. Burton has talked about his own childhood feeling of being an outsider, of not quite fitting in, which he channeled into both Charlie and Wonka. The factory itself was inspired by childhood fantasies of secret worlds hidden in plain sight. The idea that magic could be happening behind ordinary walls if you just knew where to look. The visual design drew from various sources: German Expressionism for some of the architecture, 1960s psychedelia for the color palette, and Victorian industrial design for the machinery. Burton wanted the factory to feel timeless, not clearly set in any particular era, so it mixes elements from different time periods into this dreamlike space where normal rules don't apply. The nut room, for example, feels Victorian with its industrial sorting mechanism, while the television room feels more retro-futuristic with its 1970s vision of high technology. The casting process for the children was extensive because they needed kids who could act, not just cute faces. Freddie Highmore was Burton's first choice for Charlie after seeing his work in Finding Neverland. Highmore had this natural, understated quality that Burton felt was perfect for a character who needs to be likable without being sappy. For the bratty kids, they needed young actors who could be awful without becoming completely unwatchable, which is a delicate balance. They had to be entertaining in their awfulness, almost cartoonish but still grounded enough that you believe they're real children. Anna Sophia Robb as Violet brings this intense competitiveness that's both funny and uncomfortable. Julia Winter as Veruca is imperious and demanding in a way that's almost impressive. She commits fully to being the worst. Jordan Fry as Mike TV has this dismissive, know-it-all quality that perfectly captures a certain type of modern child. Philip Wiegrotz as Augustus is all about physical comedy, constantly eating in every scene. Each actor brings something distinct to their role while fitting into the overall tone Burton was going for. Johnny Depp's casting as Wonka was announced early and generated immediate buzz, because everyone wanted to see what he'd do with such an iconic character. Depp has said he didn't watch Gene Wilder's performance because he didn't want to be influenced by it. He wanted to create something completely new. Some people loved his interpretation, finding it fascinatingly weird and layered. Others felt he went too far, making Wonka too strange and removing some of the warmth that Wilder brought. But you can't accuse Depp of playing it safe or just rehashing what came before. He fully commits to his choices, even the controversial ones, creating a Wonka who's brilliant and broken in equal measure. The scenes where he interacts with the children have this edge of danger to them. You're never quite sure if Wonka is harmless or if there's something genuinely disturbing under the surface. That ambiguity is intentional and keeps the audience slightly off balance throughout the film. Helena Bonham Carter and Noah Taylor as Charlie's parents don't get as much screen time as you might expect, but they make the most of what they have. Carter, who was in a relationship with Burton at the time and appeared in many of his films, brings warmth and exhaustion to Mrs. Bucket. She's trying so hard to keep the family together, to keep spirits up despite their terrible circumstances, and Carter plays that struggle without melodrama. Noah Taylor as Mr. Bucket has less to do, but there's a lovely subplot where he loses his job to a machine, which adds to the family's desperate circumstances. The film doesn't dwell on it with heavy-handed messaging, but it's there. This family is one disaster away from complete ruin, and Charlie knows it even if nobody says it directly. That makes his decision at the end even more powerful because he's choosing poverty and love over wealth and loneliness, fully understanding what he's giving up. The four grandparents are played by veteran actors who bring dignity and humor to roles that could easily become one note. David Kelly as Grandpa Joe is the standout, but the others, Liz Smith, Eileen Essel, and David Morris, create a believable family unit even though they're all just lying in bed for most of the movie. Their reactions to the golden ticket, their excitement for Charlie, their concern when he's gone, it all feels genuine. These aren't just comic relief characters. They're people who love their grandson and want the best for him. The scene where they pool their secret money to buy Charlie an extra chocolate bar, hoping for a miracle, is touching, because you see how much they care despite having nothing to give. And when Charlie shares his birthday chocolate with everyone, breaking off tiny pieces to make sure everyone gets some, the grandparents' appreciation isn't over the top. It's quiet and real. These small moments ground the film and remind us what's actually at stake emotionally. Christopher Lee appears in flashback sequences as Wonka's father, and even though his screen time is limited, he makes a strong impression. Lee, who was a legend of horror cinema and was in his 80s when he made this film, brings this stern, forbidding presence to the role. He plays Wonka's father as someone who believes he's doing the right thing, protecting his son from tooth decay and unhealthy habits, but who's actually crushing the joy out of his child. The scenes in the dentist office, with young Wonka in a massive head brace and his father forbidding all candy, are genuinely uncomfortable. Burton uses exaggerated production design to make the dentist office feel like a torture chamber, all harsh lighting and metal instruments. Lee doesn't play the father as a villain exactly, he's too controlled for that, but as someone who's rigid and uncompromising, unable to see that he's damaging his son psychologically. The eventual reconciliation between them at the end of the film gives Wonka's arc closure, showing that family relationships can be repaired even after years of estrangement. Now let's dig into the plot developments and the way the story unfolds, because there are layers here beyond just the surface narrative. The film opens with the history of Wonka's chocolate, showing him as the world's premier candy maker whose factory has been closed for years. There are rumors about why it closed: industrial espionage, workers stealing recipes, and then the sudden announcement of the golden ticket competition. The film smartly shows us the global reaction to this announcement, with people from every country desperately buying chocolate bars, hoping to win. It becomes a media frenzy, with reporters camping out at stores, people taking out loans to buy chocolate, and the tickets themselves becoming more valuable than gold. The first 4 tickets are found relatively quickly by children who represent different types of awfulness. We see each discovery played as a news event, with the children and their parents being interviewed and revealing exactly what kind of people they are. Augustus Gloop is found in Germany, and the news coverage shows him literally eating his way through mountains of chocolate, while his mother praises his appetite. Veruca Salt's discovery is even more disturbing because it reveals that her father bought thousands of chocolate bars and had his factory workers unwrap them during work hours just so his daughter could win. She didn't find the ticket through luck. Her family essentially bought it through brute force and questionable labor practices. Violet Beauregard is the American champion gum chewer whose mother has turned her into a competitive machine, and she approaches the ticket as just another trophy to win. Mike Teavee, another American kid, actually hacks the contest using mathematics and probability, which shows intelligence but completely misses the point of the magic and wonder the contest is supposed to represent. Each of these discoveries is intercut with scenes of Charlie's family watching on their tiny television, seeing these wealthy or privileged children winning while Charlie can't even afford more than 1 bar a year. The contrast is stark and deliberately designed to make you root for Charlie even harder. When Charlie finds his ticket, it happens in the most honest way possible. He discovers money in a gutter while walking home, partially frozen in ice. His first instinct is to take it to the shop and ask if anyone lost it, showing his fundamental honesty. When nobody claims it, he buys food first, a loaf of bread for his family because they're hungry, and only then does he buy a chocolate bar for himself. And in that bar, miraculously, is the final golden ticket. The scene is played with such genuine joy and disbelief, with Highmore showing Charlie's shock and excitement, and then immediately wanting to share this moment with his family. The shopkeeper and the crowd around him are celebrating, but Charlie's first thought is getting home to tell Grandpa Joe and his parents. That immediate instinct to share good news rather than hoard it for himself tells you everything about who Charlie is. It's also the moment when Grandpa Joe decides he's getting out of that bed and accompanying Charlie on the tour, which becomes its own mini-story of rediscovered life and purpose. The day of the factory tour arrives, and the film does a great job of building anticipation. The families gather outside the massive gates, and we see the stark differences between them. Augustus's family looks comfortable and well-fed. Veruca's father is in an expensive coat, and Veruca herself is dripping with affluence. Violet and her mother are in matching tracksuits, treating this like an athletic event they intend to win. Mike is barely paying attention, focused on his handheld video game, while his parents look resigned to their son's behavior. And then there's Charlie in his poor but clean clothes, holding Grandpa Joe's hand, just grateful to be there. When Wonka finally appears, it's this theatrical entrance where he emerges from the factory with a cane, appears to stumble, does a somersault, and comes up smiling. It's a test. He wants to see how people react when they think something's wrong. Most of the families just look confused or concerned about their opportunity possibly being ruined. Only Charlie and Grandpa Joe seem concerned about Wonka himself. This small moment foreshadows the entire journey to come. Once inside, the tour becomes a series of eliminations, though nobody realizes that's what's happening at first. In the chocolate room, everything is edible and amazing, and Wonka explains his various inventions with pride. But Augustus can't help himself. Despite being told not to, He starts drinking directly from the chocolate river. Wonka warns him, but Augustus doesn't listen, loses his balance, and falls in. The chocolate river feeds into the pipes that go throughout the factory, and Augustus gets sucked up into one of them, stuck because he's too fat to fit properly. Rather than stopping everything to save him, Wonka is more concerned that Augustus might contaminate the chocolate. He sends Augustus's mother to the fudge room where her son will probably end up, and then just continues the tour with one less family. The Oompa Loompas perform their first song, which is basically about gluttony and how Augustus brought this on himself. It's darkly funny because we just watched a child get sucked into a pipe, but the film frames it as deserved consequences rather than tragedy. The pattern continues with each subsequent room and each remaining child. In the inventing room, Wonka shows off his experimental three-course dinner chewing gum, but explicitly warns that it's not ready yet and nobody should take it. Violet, unable to resist being first at something, grabs it anyway and starts chewing. At first it works. She tastes tomato soup, then roast beef and baked potato, but Wonka is frantically trying to get her to spit it out before she reaches dessert. She refuses, competitive to the end, and when she tastes blueberry pie, she starts turning blue and swelling up into a giant blueberry. Her mother is horrified, but Wonka is more interested in the scientific data than Violet's well-being. He sends her off to be juiced before she explodes, and another family exits the tour. Again, the Oompa Loompas sing about the consequences of gum chewing and pride, and again, Wonka just moves forward without much concern. There's a coldness to how he handles these situations that's unsettling, but the film makes clear that he did warn them, they didn't listen, and now they're dealing with the results of their choices. The nut room is where Veruca meets her fate, and it's particularly satisfying because she's been awful the entire tour. This room is full of squirrels trained to tap on walnuts to determine if they're good or bad. Good nuts get shelled, bad nuts go down the garbage chute. Veruca immediately decides she wants one of the squirrels, and when her father asks Wonka to sell him one, Wonka explains they're not for sale and can't be replaced. Any normal person would accept this, but Veruca is not normal. She climbs over the gate and enters the room, trying to grab a squirrel for herself. The squirrels, protecting their own, swarm her, determine that she's a bad nut, and throw her down the garbage chute along with her father, who tries to save her. It's violent in a cartoonish way, and again, the film makes clear she brought this entirely on herself through her inability to accept being told no. The Oompa Loompas sing about spoiled children and bad parenting, laying the blame at the feet of Veruca's parents for creating this monster. 3 down, 2 children left. Mike TV's elimination happens in the television chocolate room, where Wonka has invented a way to transport chocolate through television signals. It's his proudest invention, something that proves his genius, but it's also dangerous and not fully tested. Mike, who thinks he knows better than everyone, decides to prove it works on people and jumps into the television transmission himself before anyone can stop him. He does get transported to the television successfully, but he comes out about 6 inches tall. His parents are freaking out, but Wonka is actually somewhat impressed that it worked at all. He sends Mike off to the taffy pulling room to be stretched back to normal size, warning that he might end up very tall and thin, but that's better than being tiny. And then there were 2. Charlie and Grandpa Joe are the only ones left, which means Charlie has won by default, simply by being a decent person who listens to instructions and doesn't let greed or pride control his actions. This is when Wonka's entire demeanor shifts, because the tour is over, and now comes the real test. He takes Charlie and Grandpa Joe to the Great Glass Elevator, this fantastic transportation device that can go anywhere in the factory, including up and out through the roof. They burst through the ceiling and fly over the city, and it's this moment of pure joy and freedom. Charlie is experiencing something impossible, something wonderful, and he's sharing it with his grandfather, which makes it even better. Wonka begins to explain that Charlie has won. He's passed every test, resisted every temptation, and proven himself worthy. The prize is the factory itself. Wonka wants Charlie to be his heir, to take over when Wonka is gone, to continue the work of creating wonder and magic through candy. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, literally. A poor boy from nowhere will become the owner of the most famous chocolate factory in the world, will never want for anything ever again, will have everything he could possibly dream of. There's just one condition, and it's presented almost as an afterthought. Charlie will have to leave his family behind and live in the factory because family is a distraction and a complication that Wonka doesn't want to deal with. This is the moment where Charlie has to make the hardest choice of his life, and it's the moment that defines the entire film thematically. Everything up to this point has been about proving that Charlie is special, that he deserves good things, that virtue should be rewarded. But now the reward comes with a price that Wonka thinks is reasonable, but that Charlie finds impossible. Wonka genuinely believes he's making a fair offer. He's giving Charlie everything in exchange for leaving behind people who can't really help him anyway. In Wonka's worldview, shaped by his estrangement from his own father, family is either absent or actively harmful, so cutting ties makes sense. But Charlie has something Wonka lost or never really had, a family that loves him unconditionally, not for what he can provide or achieve, but simply because he's theirs. The decision isn't even close for Charlie. He thanks Wonka for everything, for the tour and the opportunity, but he declines. He chooses his family over the factory, poverty over wealth, love over magic. And this completely breaks Wonka's understanding of human nature. The film then shifts into its final act, which is really about Wonka's journey rather than Charlie's. Charlie goes back to his crooked little house and his poor family, and life continues as it was before, except now he has this incredible memory and the knowledge that he made the right choice. But Wonka is stuck. He has his factory, his inventions, his Oompa Loompas, everything he thought mattered. But he's realized it's not enough. Charlie's refusal has planted a seed of doubt in Wonka's mind about the choices he's made in his own life. There are flashbacks to Wonka's childhood, showing his relationship with his father deteriorating over candy, showing young Wonka running away to pursue his dreams, showing the loneliness and isolation that came with his success. We see that Wonka has essentially recreated his childhood trauma. His father cut him off from what he loved, so Wonka cut himself off from human connection entirely. He's been living in a self-imposed exile, surrounded by wonderful things, but unable to enjoy them because there's nobody to share them with. The character arc completes when Wonka seeks out his father after decades of estrangement. This is terrifying for him. The man literally has a physical reaction to words like family and parents, because he's repressed these feelings for so long. But he makes the journey, and he discovers that his father has kept every newspaper clipping about Wonka's success, every article and achievement displayed like treasures in his office. His father has been following his son's career from afar, proud of him despite their estrangement, never throwing away the memories even though they haven't spoken. It's a powerful moment because it shows that sometimes the people we think have rejected us actually care more than we know. Christopher Lee plays the reunion with such restraint. There's no dramatic apology or tearful reconciliation, just a quiet acknowledgement that they're both still here, and maybe it's not too late to try again. This experience transforms Wonka's understanding of what family means and what he's been missing. Armed with this new understanding, Wonka returns to Charlie with a different offer. He still wants Charlie to have the factory, but now he understands that he can't ask Charlie to abandon his family. Instead, Wonka makes the radical decision to bring Charlie's entire family to live in the factory. The giant bed with all 4 grandparents gets moved into the factory. Charlie's parents come along. Everyone is included in this new life. It's not what Wonka originally wanted. It's messy and complicated and involves people he doesn't necessarily understand. But he's willing to try because Charlie taught him that family and human connection are worth the discomfort. The film ends with the Bucket family living in the chocolate factory, Wonka learning to be part of a family again, and Charlie getting both his dreams, the magical wonder of the factory and the people he loves. It's a genuinely happy ending that feels earned because both Charlie and Wonka had to grow and sacrifice and change to get there. The visual style of the film is quintessentially Tim Burton, which means it's both beautiful and slightly disturbing in equal measure. Burton uses extreme contrast throughout the film to emphasize the differences between Charlie's world and Wonka's world. The town where Charlie lives is rendered in cold, desaturated colors. Lots of grays, blues, and browns that make everything look harsh and uninviting. The houses are crooked and seem on the verge of collapse. The streets are dirty and filled with slush and snow, and even the people look worn down and gray. Burton is heavily influenced by German expressionism, and you can see it in the architecture and angles of Charlie's neighborhood. Buildings lean at impossible angles, creating this sense of instability and danger. The bucket house in particular looks like it might blow over in a strong wind, which visually reinforces how precarious their existence is. In contrast, once the characters enter the factory, Burton explodes with color and imagination. The chocolate room is overwhelmingly vibrant with its bright green grass, pink sugar boats, and the massive chocolate waterfall. The colors are so saturated that they're almost aggressive, which is intentional. Burton wants the audience to feel overwhelmed by the sensory overload, just like the characters are. Each room in the factory has its own color palette and design aesthetic. The inventing room is full of gleaming metal and glass, with bubbling liquids in various colors creating this mad scientist laboratory feel. The nut room has this Victorian industrial design with all the squirrels working in perfect synchronization like a massive mechanical clock. The television room is stark white and minimalist, almost sterile, which makes the violence of Mike's transformation more shocking against the clean background. Burton uses these distinct visual identities to give each space its own character and to keep the audience engaged as the tour progresses. The cinematography by Philippe Rousselot deserves special recognition because it's not easy to shoot a film that ranges from gritty realism to pure fantasy without losing visual coherence. Rousselot uses different techniques for different parts of the film. In the real world, the camera movements are more grounded and realistic, using natural lighting and practical locations when possible. But inside the factory, the camera becomes much more dynamic and fluid, swooping and gliding through spaces in ways that wouldn't be possible in reality. This isn't just showing off, it's emphasizing that the factory operates by different rules, that impossible things happen here. The lighting shifts dramatically too. Outside the factory, Rousselot uses harsh, cold lighting that emphasizes the bleakness of poverty. Inside, the lighting is theatrical and colorful, with gels and filters creating these saturated, almost unnatural hues that make everything feel like a stage production or a fever dream. Burton's use of practical effects mixed with CGI is really effective because it grounds the fantasy in something tangible. The chocolate waterfall is real, pumping actual chocolate-like substance, which gives it weight and presence that pure CGI wouldn't have. Many of the props and set pieces are physical objects that the actors can interact with, which helps their performances feel more genuine. But then Burton enhances these practical elements with digital effects for things that can't be done practically. The Oompa Loompas, the glass elevator flying through the air, Augustus getting sucked through the pipe system. The blend is mostly seamless, and the film holds up reasonably well nearly 20 years later because Burton didn't rely exclusively on digital effects that might age poorly. The production design by Alex McDowell creates these incredibly detailed environments full of small touches that reward repeated viewings. There are little jokes and references hidden in the background, inventions that are never explained but are visible in Wonka's workshop, details that flesh out the world without drawing explicit attention to themselves. The costume design by Gabriella Piscucci is another crucial element in establishing character and tone. Wonka's purple velvet suit and top hat are iconic, giving him this Victorian ringmaster quality that's both inviting and slightly threatening. The outfit is elegant but also a costume. Wonka is always performing, always presenting a carefully crafted image to the world. The bratty children's costumes are equally telling. Augustus is in clothes that are too small, emphasizing his size and his family's inability or unwillingness to address his eating problem. Veruca's fur coat and expensive dresses scream wealth and privilege, making her look like a tiny adult rather than a child. Violet's tracksuit is all about function over form, reducing her to an athlete rather than a person. Mike's casual, almost sloppy clothing shows that nobody's paying attention to him. He's raising himself via television while his parents check out. In contrast, Charlie's clothes are poor but clean and carefully maintained, showing that his family cares even if they don't have money. The Oompa Loompas have these retro outfits that change with each musical number, which adds to the theatrical, artificial quality of their performances. Danny Elfman's score, as mentioned earlier, is integral to the film's emotional landscape. Elfman has this ability to write music that's simultaneously whimsical and dark, which is perfect for Burton's sensibility and for this story specifically. The main theme has this music box quality, delicate and slightly mechanical, which reflects Wonka's manufactured wonderland. But Elfman can also go big and bombastic for moments like the glass elevator flight or dark and threatening when danger approaches. The Oompa Loompa songs are complete departures from the rest of the score, each one parodying a different musical genre. Augustus's song is this Germanic pa-pa style, Violet's is a 1970s disco number, Veruca's is a psychedelic rock song reminiscent of the Beatles, and Mike's is a full-on Queen-style rock opera. These stylistic shifts keep the songs from becoming repetitive and add humor by contrasting the serious moral lessons with absurdly upbeat musical styles. Elfman's voice work as the Oompa Loompas is processed and layered to sound otherworldly, which adds to their strange, not quite human quality. The pacing of the film is generally strong, though some critics felt it dragged slightly in the middle section. The first act, establishing Charlie's world and the golden ticket contest, moves quickly and efficiently, getting us invested in Charlie's situation without lingering too long on the poverty misery. The factory tour itself is episodic by nature. Each room is essentially its own set piece with a beginning, middle, and end. But Burton keeps things moving by varying the tone and content of each sequence. Just when you might get tired of watching children meet terrible fates, the film shifts into the emotional climax of Charlie's choice and Wonka's realization. The final act, dealing with Wonka's family issues and the resolution, is where some viewers feel the film loses momentum. The flashbacks to Wonka's childhood, while thematically important, do slow down the narrative right when we're expecting the conclusion. But these scenes are necessary for Wonka's character arc to feel complete. so it's a trade-off between pacing and emotional satisfaction. At 115 minutes, the film is longer than the 1971 version by about 15 minutes, and you feel that extra length primarily in the extended third act. Burton could have potentially trimmed some of the flashbacks or condensed the reconciliation with Wonka's father, but he clearly felt this emotional journey was important enough to give it space. For viewers who connect with the father-son relationship storyline, the extra time is worthwhile. For those who came primarily for the factory tour and the bratty children getting their comeuppance, it might feel like unnecessary padding. It's a matter of what you prioritize in the story, the spectacle and humor versus the emotional character development. Burton clearly chose to prioritize both, which results in a film that's trying to do a lot in its runtime, mostly successfully. The film's reception upon release was mixed, which is interesting considering how it's been re-evaluated over time. Critics were divided, with some praising Burton's visual imagination and the performances, while others felt the film was too dark for children and that Depp's Wonka was off-putting. The comparison to the 1971 film was inevitable and not always favorable. Gene Wilder's Wonka had been beloved for decades, and some viewers simply weren't ready to accept a different interpretation. The film was a commercial success, though, grossing over $475 million worldwide against its $150 million budget. Audiences generally enjoyed it, particularly families with children who responded to the humor and spectacle. The film found a strong second life on home video and television, where it's become a staple of family viewing, particularly around holidays. Roger Ebert gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, praising the visual design, but noting that Depp's performance was disconnected at times. The New York Times called it impressive, but felt it lacked the anarchic wit of Dahl's book. Entertainment Weekly praised the production design, but criticized the creepy tone that they felt was inappropriate for younger children. Over time, however, the film has developed a strong following, particularly among those who grew up with it. Gen Z audiences who saw it as children now defend it passionately online, arguing that Depp's Weird Wonka is actually more interesting than a straightforward magical candy man. The film's darker elements, which concerned some critics initially, are now seen as part of its appeal. It treats children as intelligent viewers who can handle complexity and doesn't talk down to them. The film has some genuinely strong elements that even its critics acknowledged. The production design is consistently praised as imaginative and detailed, creating a fully realized world that feels complete and thought through. The child actors are excellent across the board, avoiding the usual pitfalls of child performances by being naturalistic when needed and appropriately exaggerated when playing the bratty kids. Freddie Highmore's performance as Charlie is particularly praised for its sincerity and lack of precociousness. He plays Charlie as a real kid, dealing with real problems, not as a miniature adult or a saintly caricature. The humor works for both children and adults, with visual gags and slapstick for younger viewers and more subtle dark humor for older audiences. The Oompa Loompa songs are catchy and funny, delivering Dahl's moral lessons in entertaining ways that don't feel preachy. The weaknesses of the film, according to critics and some viewers, center on a few key areas. The biggest complaint is about Depp's performance. While some love it, others find it too weird, too disconnected, lacking the warmth that makes you want to root for Wonka. There's an argument that Burton and Depp made Wonka too damaged, too psychologically troubled, turning what should be a magical figure into someone who seems like he needs serious therapy. The backstory with the dentist father, while giving Wonka motivation, is seen by some as unnecessary psychoanalysis of a character who works better as a mysterious enigma. Some viewers feel the film is too dark tonally, particularly for younger children. The imagery of kids being turned into blueberries or thrown down garbage chutes might be disturbing rather than funny for sensitive kids. The CGI, while generally good, has moments where it looks obvious, particularly with the Oompa Loompas in some scenes, which can pull viewers out of the experience. The film also struggles slightly with its identity. It's not entirely clear who the target audience is. It's based on a children's book and marketed as a family film, but the dark humor and psychological complexity might go over younger children's heads or upset them. Adults who loved the book or the 1971 film might find this version too different or too weird. The film exists in this interesting middle ground where it's trying to appeal to multiple demographics simultaneously, which means it fully satisfies none of them, but offers something interesting to all of them. This is actually fairly common with Tim Burton films. They often have this quality of being too dark for young children, but too whimsical for serious adults, finding their audience among teens and adults who appreciate the blend of tones. So is the film worth watching? Absolutely, but with the understanding that it's not trying to be the 1971 version, and it's not trying to be a straightforward children's film. If you appreciate Tim Burton's aesthetic and sensibility, this is him working at a high level with a solid budget and a great cast. If you're a fan of Johnny Depp's more eccentric performances, his Wonka is fascinating to watch, even if you don't ultimately like the interpretation. If you want a visually stunning film with incredible production design and a strong musical score, this delivers completely. If you're looking for something the whole family can watch that has humor, heart, and a genuine moral message about the importance of family and character over wealth and success, it works on that level too. The film respects its audience's intelligence, doesn't simplify Dahl's darker elements, and tells a complete story with real emotional stakes. For children, the film works as an adventure story with clear heroes and villains, funny songs, and amazing visuals. The moral lessons: don't be greedy, don't be spoiled, don't be violent, don't be gluttonous, are delivered clearly without being preachy. Charlie is a character kids can identify with and root for, someone who faces real hardship but maintains his goodness. The bad children are entertaining in their awfulness, and their punishments, while dark, are cartoonish enough not to be truly traumatic. For adults, the film offers layers of meaning about family, isolation, trauma, and redemption. Wonka's journey from damaged loner to someone willing to open himself up to human connection is genuinely moving if you engage with it. The satire of modern parenting, consumerism, and media obsession remains relevant, perhaps more so now than in 2005. The film has aged reasonably well from a technical standpoint. The practical effects and production design still look great, and the CGI, while not perfect, holds up adequately for a film from this era. The themes are timeless, and if anything, the commentary on children being raised by screens, Mike TV, or turned into competitive machines, Violet Beauregard, feels more relevant in our current age of tablets and Instagram. The message that family and love matter more than wealth and success is universal and doesn't feel dated. The performances are strong enough that they transcend the specific time period. These characters feel archetypal rather than tied to 2005 specifically. Comparing it to other adaptations is inevitable. The 1971 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a completely different animal. It's warmer, more mysterious, and Gene Wilder's Wonka is charming and dangerous in different proportions than Depp's. That film has its own dark moments, but they're balanced differently, and the overall tone is less gothic. Both films have merit, and preferring one over the other comes down to personal taste rather than objective quality. The 2005 version is more faithful to Dahl's book in many ways, including story elements and details that the 1971 film changed or omitted. But it also adds the entire father backstory that Dahl never wrote, so faithful is relative. Burton's film looks much more like how Dahl described the factory in terms of the physical details and the Oompa Loompas' appearance. Ultimately, there's room for both versions to exist and appeal to different audiences. There's also a stage musical adaptation that's been running in various productions, and a new film directed by Paul King focusing on young Wonka is coming, so clearly the property has legs beyond these two major film versions. Each adaptation brings something different to the table, interpreting Dahl's work through different lenses and for different eras. Burton's 2005 version will likely remain the definitive dark, gothic, psychologically complex interpretation of the story, just as the 1971 film remains the definitive warm, mysterious, musical interpretation. Neither cancels the other out. They complement each other by showing the range of possibilities within Dahl's original concept. In terms of rewatchability, the 2005 film holds up well because there's so much visual detail to notice on subsequent viewings. The production design is dense with Easter eggs and small jokes that you might miss the first time through. The performances reveal new layers when you know where the story is going. Depp's Wonka drops little hints about his loneliness and his ultimate plan that are easy to miss initially. The film also works as background viewing because it's so visually interesting. You can enjoy the colors and design even if you're not paying close attention to dialogue. The musical numbers are memorable enough that they stick in your head, for better or worse depending on how you feel about Augustus Gloop or Violet Beauregard as songs. The legacy of the film is still being written, but it's clear that it has become a significant part of the cultural conversation around this story. When people discuss Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, they're now comparing three versions: the book, the 1971 film, and the 2005 film, rather than just two. Burton's vision has influenced how people visualize the factory and has become part of the mental furniture for a generation of viewers. Memes and references from the film circulate online, particularly Wonka's weirder moments and lines. The image of Johnny Depp in that purple suit and bob haircut is instantly recognizable and has been parodied and referenced countless times. The film has become a genuine part of pop culture, rather than just a footnote to the 1971 version. For Tim Burton's career, this film represents him working in a more commercial, big-budget space while maintaining his distinctive style. It showed that his aesthetic could work for major studio tentpole releases and family films, not just quirky independent projects or niche horror comedies. The success of this film likely led to him being trusted with other big properties like Alice in Wonderland, though that film's reception was more mixed. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is generally considered one of Burton's stronger later period films, showing that he hadn't lost his visual imagination or his ability to craft compelling characters even as he moved into more mainstream territory. In conclusion, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 2005 is a flawed but fascinating film that takes real creative risks while adapting beloved source material. It's visually stunning, well-acted, thematically rich, and genuinely entertaining despite some pacing issues and divisive creative choices. Johnny Depp's Wonka is weird and uncomfortable, and unlike anything that came before, which is either a strength or a weakness depending on your perspective. Freddie Highmore grounds the film with a sincere, touching performance as Charlie that never becomes saccharine. The bratty children are hilariously awful and meet satisfying fates. The production design is extraordinary and creates a fully realized world. The music is catchy and varied. The emotional arc of both Charlie and Wonka choosing family over isolation gives the film real heart beneath the spectacle. Is it perfect? No. Is it for everyone? Definitely not. But for those who connect with Burton's sensibility, who appreciate visual filmmaking, who want their family entertainment to have some darkness and complexity, and who are willing to accept a very different interpretation of familiar material, this film offers a lot to enjoy. It respects its audience, trusts that children can handle difficult themes, and tells a complete story with a genuine emotional payoff. Nearly 20 years after its release, it remains a visually arresting, thematically interesting, and thoroughly entertaining piece of cinema that deserves to be evaluated on its own merits rather than constantly compared to what came before. Whether you prefer it to the 1971 version is a matter of taste, but there's no denying that Tim Burton created something unique and memorable that has earned its place in the ongoing conversation about this classic story. The thing that really strikes you when you sit down and analyze this film beyond the surface level is how much thought went into the visual storytelling, especially in moments where there's no dialogue at all. Burton understands that cinema is a visual medium first and foremost, and he uses that to his advantage throughout the runtime. Take the opening sequence, for example, where we see the Wonka chocolate bars being manufactured in this elaborate mechanical ballet. There's no narration, no characters talking, just this perfectly choreographed dance of machinery wrapping chocolate bars with golden tickets hidden inside. It's mesmerizing to watch and sets up the film's blend of the mechanical and the magical right from the start. The sequence tells you everything you need to know about Wonka's perfectionism and his love of spectacle without anyone having to explain it. Then there's the way Burton contrasts the houses in Charlie's neighborhood with the factory. The bucket house is literally leaning to one side, held up seemingly by hope and determination rather than actual structural integrity. It's cramped. Everyone is on top of each other. Privacy is non-existent. But it's filled with love and warmth despite the cold blue lighting. You can feel the family's care for each other in how they interact, in the small gestures and shared glances. When Charlie comes home, everyone wants to hear about his day. When Grandpa Joe tells stories, everyone gathers around and listens, even though they've probably heard these tales 1,000 times before. The space is tiny and falling apart, but it's a home in the truest sense. Compare that to Veruca Salt's massive mansion or Violet's modern suburban house. These spaces are huge and well-appointed, but they feel empty and cold. There's no sense of family connection in those environments, just parents and children existing in proximity without genuine relationship. Burton also does really interesting things with scale throughout the film, playing with our sense of proportion to create unease or wonder depending on the scene. The chocolate room is massive, impossibly huge, with a ceiling so high you can barely see it. It makes the human characters feel small and insignificant, which is exactly how Wonka sees them initially, as tiny visitors in his grand creation. The waterfall dominates the space, this enormous cascade of chocolate that seems to go on forever. When Augustus falls in, he's just this small figure disappearing into this vast brown river, emphasizing how easily someone can be swallowed up by excess and greed. Later, when Mike gets shrunk down, the reversal is played for both comedy and discomfort. He's so small that he fits in his mother's purse, and everyone towers over him like giants. It's a visual representation of how his obsession with screens has diminished him as a person, made him smaller and less significant in the real world. The Oompa Loompas deserve their own deep dive because they're such a weird and fascinating element of this adaptation. In the original book, Dahl described them as tiny people from Loompa Land who love cocoa beans, and the 1971 film depicted them with orange skin and green hair as these cheerful little workers. Burton's version takes the concept and runs it through his gothic sensibility, making them somewhat unsettling. Having Deep Roy play every single Oompa Loompa through digital multiplication was a bold choice that pays off in creating this unified, almost hive mind quality to them. They move in perfect synchronization, they all look identical, and they burst into these elaborate production numbers at key moments without any setup or explanation. It's surreal and dreamlike, which fits the overall tone of the factory as this place where normal rules don't apply. What's really clever is how each Oompa Loompa song matches the personality and background of the child who just met their fate. Augustus's song has this German beer hall quality with accordions and that oompa rhythm, directly referencing his nationality and his family's culture of indulgence. Violet's song shifts into 1970s funk and disco with these ridiculous dance moves and costumes straight out of Saturday Night Fever, which mirrors her mother's clearly outdated approach to parenting and her own obsession with competition from a bygone era of American achievement culture. Veruca's song goes full psychedelic rock with visual effects that look like a bad acid trip, swirling colors, and the Oompa Loompas in Beatles-style mop tops, which seems to comment on the excesses of the 1960s British rock scene and old money privilege. And Mike's song is pure Queen-inspired rock opera, with the Oompa Loompas in leather and studs, performing on a concert stage with pyrotechnics, which is ironic since Mike claimed to hate all television and entertainment except for his violent video games. These musical interludes could have easily become tedious or repetitive. After all, we're stopping the story 4 times for essentially the same purpose, to comment on why this child deserved what happened to them. But by varying the musical genres so dramatically and making each sequence visually distinct, Elfman and Burton keep them fresh and entertaining. They also serve as palate cleansers between the different rooms and challenges, giving the audience a moment to process what just happened before moving on to the next set piece. There's dark comedy in how upbeat and cheerful the songs are while delivering these harsh moral judgments. The Oompa Loompas are basically singing, "This kid is terrible and got what they deserved," but doing it with such enthusiasm and joy that it becomes absurdist humor rather than mean-spirited mockery. The lyrics themselves are often direct quotes or close paraphrases from Roald Dahl's original songs in the book, which shows respect for the source material even while updating the musical styles. Dahl wrote in a very particular rhythm and rhyme scheme that's quite sophisticated for children's literature, and Elfman maintains that while fitting it to completely different musical frameworks. Lines like, "Augustus Gloop, the great big greedy nincompoop," are pure Dahl, as is Violet Beauregard, "You're turning violet, Violet Beauregard." There's something delightfully mean about these songs that modern children's entertainment often shies away from. They're not trying to protect these kids' feelings or find the good in them. They're flat out calling them awful and explaining exactly why. In our current era of participation trophies and everyone is special messaging, there's something almost refreshing about entertainment that says some kids are badly behaved and that has consequences. Now let's talk about the emotional climax of the film, which is really where Burton's addition of the father subplot either works for you or it doesn't. When Charlie refuses the factory because he won't leave his family, Wonka is genuinely confused and hurt. In his worldview, he's offering everything anyone could want, and Charlie is rejecting it for people who can't give him anything material. The look on Depp's face in this scene is interesting because you can see Wonka trying to process information that doesn't fit his understanding of how the world works. He's been isolated so long that he's forgotten or never learned that people can value relationship over opportunity. His own father gave him an ultimatum: give up candy or lose your family. And Wonka chose candy, chose his dreams and ambitions over relationship. He's assumed everyone would make the same choice because it's the only choice that makes sense to him. The fact that Charlie walks away from the factory becomes this splinter in Wonka's mind that he can't remove. We see him back in the factory, going through the motions of his work. But something has shifted. The Oompa Loompas are still there, the inventions still function, everything is as it was before. But it's not enough anymore. Charlie's choice has revealed the emptiness at the center of Wonka's existence. He has everything except what actually matters: genuine human connection, family, someone to care about him for who he is, rather than what he can provide. This realization drives Wonka to do something he hasn't done in decades, maybe ever: seek help and try to change. The scenes of him struggling to even say the word family without having a physical reaction are played for both comedy and pathos. It's funny because his reaction is so extreme, but it's also sad because you realize how damaged this man really is. The decision to visit his father after all these years is monumental for Wonka's character, and the film gives it the weight it deserves. The dentist office is in this snowy, isolated location that feels like the end of the world, which makes sense metaphorically. This is Wonka going to a place he swore he'd never return, confronting the person he blamed for all his unhappiness. Christopher Lee's brief scene is masterful in its restraint. When Wonka enters, his father doesn't immediately recognize him because it's been so long and people change. But when recognition dawns, Lee's face shows a complex mix of emotions: surprise, regret, hope, uncertainty. He doesn't leap up and embrace his son or immediately apologize. These are both proud, stubborn men who hurt each other and haven't spoken in forever. The conversation that follows is awkward and halting, neither of them quite sure how to bridge this massive gap. What breaks through the tension is the revelation that Wonka's father has followed his career, has been proud of his achievements, has kept every newspaper clipping and article about his son's success. The walls of the office are papered with Wonka's accomplishments, which is this silent testimony to a father's love that was never expressed verbally. Lee plays it beautifully. He doesn't make a big speech about always loving his son or regretting his harsh parenting. He just gestures to the walls and lets the evidence speak for itself. For Wonka, seeing this changes everything. His entire adult life has been built on the assumption that his father rejected him, that choosing candy meant losing his family forever. But here's proof that his father never stopped caring, never threw him away, just didn't know how to reach out across the divide they'd created. This reconciliation gives Wonka the courage to imagine a different kind of life, one where he doesn't have to choose between his work and human connection. He returns to Charlie with a new understanding and a new offer. Come run the factory, bring your family, we'll figure out how to make it work together. It's messy and uncertain and not the clean, controlled solution Wonka originally wanted, but it's real, and it's based on genuine relationship rather than transaction. The final scenes of the Bucket family moving into the factory are chaotic and funny. Imagine trying to navigate that enormous bed with 4 grandparents through the factory doors, but also genuinely heartwarming. Wonka is visibly uncomfortable with all these people in his space, but he's trying, which is what matters. The image of the Bucket family dinner table set up in the chocolate room, with Wonka awkwardly sitting with them and learning how to be part of a family, is the perfect ending to both Charlie's and Wonka's arcs. Charlie gets his dream without sacrificing what matters most. Wonka gets an heir and a family, though it comes in a much more complicated package than he originally wanted. Both of them had to grow and change and compromise to reach this point. Charlie had to assert his values and be willing to walk away from temptation. Wonka had to confront his trauma, reconcile with his father, and open himself up to the messiness of human relationship. It's a genuinely satisfying conclusion that earns its happy ending through character development rather than just giving everyone what they want. Looking at the broader themes, the film is really about what we value and what we're willing to sacrifice for it. Each of the Golden Ticket winners represents a different modern obsession taken to an unhealthy extreme. Augustus represents overconsumption and the culture of excess, eating not for nourishment or even pleasure, but just to consume endlessly. Violet represents the achievement culture that turns children into competitive machines, where winning is everything, and the process or the joy of participation means nothing. Veruca represents entitlement and the problems of giving children everything they want immediately without making them work for anything or learn the value of things. Mike represents the screen addiction generation, kids who are so absorbed in virtual worlds that they've lost touch with physical reality and human interaction. Charlie, in contrast, represents old-fashioned values that the film argues are timeless and important: gratitude, honesty, humility, family loyalty, and thinking of others before yourself. He's not perfect or saintly, he's just fundamentally decent in a way that's become rare. The fact that he wins, not through luck or cleverness, but simply by being a good person, is the film's central message. Character matters more than ability or ambition or wealth. Wonka himself represents the danger of isolation and choosing work over relationship, of letting childhood trauma define your entire adult life. His arc is about learning that success and achievement are empty without someone to share them with, that the factory means nothing if you're alone in it. The film also has interesting things to say about parenting and the consequences of different parenting styles. None of the bad children are entirely at fault for how they turned out. Their parents created them through years of bad decisions and enabling. Augustus's mother makes excuses for his behavior and never sets limits. Veruca's father buys her affection and compliance rather than actually parenting her. Violet's mother lives vicariously through her daughter's achievements and has turned her into an extension of herself. Mike's parents have essentially checked out, letting screens raise their child while they do whatever they're doing off-screen. In each case, the parent is as much to blame as the child, which is why they also suffer when their children meet their fates. They have to deal with the consequences of their parenting choices. The bucket parents, despite their poverty and their somewhat questionable decision to let the grandparents lie in bed for 20 years, have raised a genuinely good kid through love, attention, and modeling good values. They're present with Charlie, they listen to him, they celebrate his small joys and support him through disappointments. They share what little they have rather than hoarding it. When Charlie finds the golden ticket, their first emotion is happiness for him, not scheming about what they might get out of it. That's the kind of parenting the film endorses. Not perfect, not wealthy, but engaged and loving and focused on raising a good human rather than a successful one. There's also commentary on media and celebrity culture and how the golden ticket search becomes this global obsession. People are literally fighting in stores, taking out loans, doing anything to get tickets for their children or themselves. The media treats it like the most important news in the world, with round-the-clock coverage and analysis. When each ticket is found, the winners are immediately thrust into the spotlight, interviewed and photographed and treated like celebrities just for finding a piece of paper in a chocolate bar. The film shows how this kind of attention brings out the worst in people. The ticket winners become arrogant and entitled. Their parents start making demands. Everyone tries to leverage their 15 minutes of fame. Only Charlie remains humble and somewhat uncomfortable with the attention, which again marks him as different from the others. The factory tour itself can be read as a commentary on reality television and competition shows, where contestants are eliminated one by one for their flaws and failures. Wonka is essentially the host of this show, setting up challenges and watching people fail while making sarcastic commentary. The Oompa Loompas serve as a kind of Greek chorus, commenting on the action and making sure the audience understands the moral lessons. Each elimination is spectacular and public, designed for maximum entertainment value. When you think about it this way, Wonka is pretty ruthless. He could stop these kids from getting into trouble, but he chooses not to because their failures serve his purpose of finding the right heir. It's not exactly child endangerment, since he does warn them and has systems in place to retrieve them afterward, but it's definitely letting children suffer consequences that could have been prevented. This reading makes Wonka a more morally complex character than he might initially appear. He's not a pure, benevolent, magical figure. He's manipulative. He uses these children to prove his point about human nature, and he seems to enjoy watching the bad ones fail. At the same time, he's not evil either. He does warn them. The consequences are proportional to their misbehavior, and he's ultimately searching for someone worthy to inherit his life's work. He exists in this gray area between good and bad, which makes him more interesting than a straightforward hero or villain. Depp's performance captures this ambiguity perfectly. You're never quite sure if you should trust Wonka or be afraid of him, whether he's friend or foe, protector or threat. The relationship between Wonka and Charlie develops so gradually that you almost don't notice it happening until the end. Throughout the tour, Wonka barely acknowledges Charlie directly. He's focused on explaining his inventions and watching the other children fail. But if you pay attention, he does treat Charlie differently. He doesn't mock him like he does the others. He answers Charlie's questions seriously rather than dismissively. When Charlie shows interest in how something works, Wonka lights up a bit and explains in more detail. These are small moments, but they add up to show that Wonka recognizes something special in Charlie, even if he doesn't consciously realize it yet. By the time they're alone in the glass elevator, there's already a foundation of mutual respect that makes Wonka's offer feel earned rather than random. Charlie's decision to refuse the factory is consistent with everything we've learned about him, but it's still a powerful moment because we know what he's giving up. This isn't a kid who has lots of options or opportunities. This is someone living in poverty who has just been offered wealth beyond imagination, and he's turning it down on principle. The film doesn't make this decision easy or portray Charlie as not being tempted. You can see him struggling with it, wanting the factory but not at the cost Wonka is demanding. His loyalty to his family isn't presented as naive or childish. It's shown as the mature, difficult right choice. When he tells Wonka, "I wouldn't give up my family for anything, not for all the chocolate in the world," it's one of the most genuine emotional moments in the film, because Highmore delivers it with such conviction. Wonka's journey after this rejection is equally important because it shows him capable of growth and change despite being set in his ways. He doesn't just immediately change his mind and bring the family to the factory. He goes through a process of self-reflection and healing first. The visit to his father is crucial because it forces Wonka to confront the root of his issues rather than just applying a band-aid solution. He has to forgive his father, and, by extension, forgive himself for the choices he made as a young man. Only after doing this emotional work Is he ready to try building the kind of family relationship he's been avoiding his whole adult life? It's a more psychologically realistic arc than just having him suddenly decide to include Charlie's family because the plot requires a happy ending. The final images of the film bring everything full circle in a really satisfying way. We started with Charlie in a crooked house with his family, dreaming of the factory from outside. We end with Charlie in the factory with his family, having achieved his dreams without losing what matters. We started with Wonka isolated in his factory, surrounded by wonders, but alone. We end with Wonka surrounded by the chaos of family life, uncomfortable but trying, no longer alone. The factory itself transforms from this perfect but sterile environment into something messier, but more alive. There are people living there now, bringing in their personalities and quirks, and disrupting Wonka's careful order, and that's portrayed as a positive development, even if it makes Wonka twitch occasionally. The symmetry of the character arcs is really well constructed. Both Charlie and Wonka face choices between what they want and what they need. Charlie wants the factory, but needs his family, and he chooses correctly the first time. Wonka wants an heir on his terms, but needs human connection, and it takes him longer to figure out the right answer. Both of them end up with something different from what they originally wanted, but better than what they thought possible. Charlie gets the factory and his family. Wonka gets an heir and a family, though not the kind he imagined. It's the kind of win-win resolution that feels earned rather than contrived, because both characters had to grow to reach it. If we're looking at the film's place in Tim Burton's broader filmography, it fits right in with his ongoing fascination with outcasts, freaks, and people who don't belong in normal society. From Edward Scissorhands to Beetlejuice to Ed Wood to Sweeney Todd, Burton is consistently drawn to characters who are strange, different, or damaged, trying to find their place in a world that doesn't understand them. Both Charlie and Wonka fit this pattern. Charlie is an outcast because of his poverty, Wonka because of his weirdness and isolation. The film argues, as Burton's work often does, that being different isn't a flaw, but can actually be a strength if you stay true to yourself and find people who accept you as you are. Burton's visual style has always been about exaggeration and expressionism rather than realism, and this film is no exception. The crooked houses, the impossible architecture of the factory, the oversaturated colors, none of it looks like the real world, but it feels emotionally true. The gray, cold poverty of Charlie's neighborhood captures how poverty actually feels, even if it doesn't look exactly like any real place. The overwhelming sensory overload of the factory captures how overwhelming entering a magical place would actually be. Burton uses visual metaphor and symbolism to communicate feelings and ideas that would be harder to express through realistic imagery. This approach works particularly well for adapting Dahl's book because Dahl's writing has that same quality of heightened reality, where things are exaggerated to make a point or create an effect. The film's lasting impact is still being felt years later through its influence on how people imagine this story and through its mimetic presence in internet culture. Wonka's more bizarre lines and moments have become GIFs and memes that circulate widely online. "Good morning, starshine, the earth says hello," has become a popular quote. The image of Wonka in his purple suit with that particular expression is instantly recognizable. The film introduced a whole generation to this story who might not have encountered it otherwise, and for them, this is the definitive version, even if older viewers prefer the 1971 film. That's actually healthy for a classic story. Having multiple interpretations allows it to speak to different generations and different sensibilities. When you stack this film up against other family films from the mid-2000s, it stands out for its willingness to be genuinely weird and dark while still being accessible to younger viewers. Most family entertainment from this era was playing it safer, sanding off rough edges to appeal to the widest possible audience. Burton went the opposite direction, leaning into the darkness and strangeness of Dahl's original vision while adding his own gothic sensibility. The result is a film that's more memorable and distinct than safer, more generic family films from the same period. You might not love every choice Burton made, but you can't accuse the film of being bland or forgettable. The performances across the board really do hold up on rewatch. Freddie Highmore manages to be sweet without being saccharine, which is incredibly difficult for a child actor. He makes Charlie feel like a real kid dealing with real problems rather than a perfect angel or a mouthpiece for moral lessons. The child actors playing the bad kids commit fully to being awful while still being entertaining to watch. They're not so terrible that you want to turn the film off, but they're bad enough that you root for their comeuppance. The adult actors playing the parents strike the right balance between being funny and being believable as people who would raise these nightmare children. David Kelly's Grandpa Joe is energetic and warm without being cloying. Helena Bonham Carter and Noah Taylor make you believe in the Bucket family's love despite their circumstances. And then there's Johnny Depp, who really swung for the fences with this one. His Wonka is definitely a choice. Pale, weird voice, bizarre mannerisms, physically awkward, emotionally damaged, and prone to saying disturbing things with a smile. Some people find it brilliant, a genuinely original take on a famous character that makes you see him in a completely new way. Others find it off-putting and prefer a warmer, more traditionally magical Wonka. Both reactions are valid, but what's undeniable is that Depp created something memorable and specific, a fully realized character rather than a generic performance. He makes choices that are risky and commits to them completely, which is what you want from a great actor, even if you don't always love the result. The technical craftsmanship on display throughout the film is really something special when you stop to appreciate it. The costume design creates distinct, memorable looks for each character that tell you about them immediately. The production design creates believable environments, whether it's poverty or fantasy. The cinematography uses light and color to create mood and meaning. The editing keeps the pace moving and knows when to linger and when to cut. The sound design creates this rich audio landscape full of detail. The visual effects blend seamlessly with practical elements. The musical score enhances every scene without overwhelming it. All these elements working together create a cohesive whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. What makes the film particularly suitable for repeat viewing is that it works on multiple levels simultaneously. Children can enjoy it as a colorful adventure story with clear lessons about behavior. Teens can appreciate the darker humor and the more complex character work. Adults can engage with the themes about family, trauma, redemption, and what makes a life meaningful. You can watch it just for the spectacle and visual feast, or you can dig into the psychology and symbolism. The film rewards whatever level of engagement you bring to it, which is the mark of well-crafted family entertainment. In terms of recommendation, this absolutely deserves a watch if you haven't seen it, and probably deserves a rewatch if you haven't seen it since it came out. It's not perfect. The pacing drags slightly in places. Some of the CGI hasn't aged perfectly, and Depp's performance will divide audiences. But its strengths far outweigh its weaknesses. The visual imagination on display is stunning. The moral center is solid, the performances are mostly excellent, and the emotional arc is genuinely satisfying. It respects its audience's intelligence and doesn't talk down to children while still being accessible and entertaining for young viewers. For families looking to watch it together, it's worth noting that it does have some dark moments that might frighten very young or sensitive children. The transformations that happen to the bad kids are played for comedy, but are still kind of intense. Turning into a blueberry, being sucked through pipes, thrown down garbage chutes by squirrels, or shrunk to tiny size might be scary for kids under about 7 or 8. But for slightly older children who can handle some cartoon violence and dark humor, it's a great shared viewing experience that can spark conversations about values, choices, and consequences. The film ultimately succeeds because it understands that Roald Dahl's story isn't just about a magical chocolate factory. It's about character, family, and what we value in life. All the spectacle and wonder serve the central theme rather than overwhelming it. The visual effects and production design create the world, but the heart of the story remains the relationship between Charlie and his family, and Wonka's journey from isolation to connection. That's why the film has endured and will likely continue to be watched and discussed for years to come. It's a complete package that delivers entertainment, visual splendor, humor, heart, and genuine emotional resonance. Not every film from 2005 can say that, which makes this one worth celebrating and worth your time to experience or revisit.